truckers see things most people don't. Empty roads at 3 a.m., abandoned gas stations, headlights in the rear view that don't belong. These are true stories from the people who spend their lives on the road. Stories that prove some loads are heavier than they look, and some roads never let you go. Welcome back to Mr. Darkveil, where true horror rides shotgun. Truckers keep the world moving. Tonight, 3 disturbing true trucker stories of what happens when the cab light fades, the fuel gauge dips, and something starts following you. Let's begin. Story 1. I've been behind the wheel of a truck for most of my adult life. 15 years, countless miles, a dozen different states. You develop a rhythm on the road, a way of settling into the hum of tires against asphalt, the faint crackle of AM radio at 2 a.m., the smell of diesel and burnt coffee in your cab. And you tell yourself you've seen it all, but some nights remind you that the road can still surprise you, that the world isn't as empty as it looks out there, that some things, no matter how far you drive, you can't just leave in the rearview mirror. This happened about 3 summers ago, somewhere in rural Missouri. I was running an easy haul, farm equipment parts headed west, not even a heavy load. My dispatcher had been apologetic about how boring the route was, but I didn't mind boring. Boring meant safe. The day had been long but uneventful. Flat fields, wide skies, the occasional grain silo cutting the horizon. I refueled in a small town around sunset, grabbed a sandwich from a gas station and figured I could make it across the Riverview stretch by midnight. Riverview Road. I'd taken it plenty of times, and it's a narrow highway, more of an old connector that got swallowed up when the interstate came through. Locals don't use it much anymore. It's just for truckers like me, shaving an hour off a haul. But Riverview has a reputation. It cuts right through a place the map calls Riverview Cemetery. Though the name's a cruel joke, there's no view, just headstones crammed together, leaning into each other, surrounded by blackened trees. I'd passed it before, a glance out the window, maybe a shiver if the fog hung low. But that night I was about to learn there's a difference between passing through a place and being stuck in it. By the time I turned onto Riverview, the world had emptied out. No traffic, no lights, just my headlights stretching ahead into the dark. The night had that heavy, humid weight that makes the air feel thicker, like you could reach out and grab it. I remember the way the asphalt looked. Old, cracked. The lines so faded you had to squint to see them. My high beams caught the edge of a sign that read, Riverview Cemetery, 1 mile. I told myself, like I always did, just a road, just another stretch. Then the truck shuddered. At first it felt like I'd hit an uneven patch, maybe a pothole, but the road was flat. Then it did it again, harder. The steering wheel twitched in my hands. I checked my mirrors. No smoke, no blown tire. Don't do this, I muttered under my breath, like I could talk the rig out of it. Then the engine coughed. Once, twice, and then everything died. The dashboard lights blinked out. The rumble under the hood went silent. The radio cut mid-sentence. Suddenly, the only sound in the world was the silence. The rig coasted forward, slowing on its own weight until it came to a full stop. I sat there gripping the wheel, waiting for something to click, for the power to surge back. Nothing. I turned the wheels. Key. Click. No turnover. I turned it again, harder. The dash lights flickered weakly, then went out again. I let my forehead rest against the steering wheel and muttered, "Not here, anywhere but here." Because I knew exactly where I'd stopped. I didn't need to look out the window to know, but I did, and sure enough, there they were, headstones, dozens of them. Scattered unevenly, some leaning, some cracked, some swallowed by weeds, and I was parked dead center in the middle of Riverview Cemetery. I told myself to be logical. Engines fail, power dies, it happens. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed down from the cab. The second my boots hit the asphalt, the night swallowed me whole. I can't explain it any other way. The air changed. It was too quiet. Even in the middle of nowhere, there's usually something. A cricket, a distant dog barking, wind in the branches. Here? Nothing. Like the world had been muted. I popped the hood, shining my light over the engine. Belts? Fine. Hoses? Fine. No smoke, no leaks, no reason for the truck to be dead. I ducked low, checked the fuel lines, the undercarriage, clean, nothing wrong. I stood there for a second, flashlight shaking a little in my grip, and told myself, get back in. Try again. So I did. I climbed back into the cab, slammed the door shut, turned the key, and the headlights flickered. Just for a second, but long enough. Because for that split second, the beams cut across the cemetery, and I saw something move. It was subtle at first. A mound of dirt trembling, like something was shifting underneath. I leaned forward, eyes straining through the windshield. The soil cracked. A hand, thin, pale, mottled, shot up from the earth. Clawing at the air, I froze. Another arm broke through, then a head. It dragged itself up with jerking, awful motions, clumps of dirt falling from what was left of its hair. Its face, God, its face was barely there. Skin sagged and peeled in strips, jaw slack, teeth exposed, and its eyes hollow, black, but they locked on me, not on the truck, on me. My hand was still on the key. I twisted it so hard I thought it would snap. The engine screamed to life like it had never been dead at all. The sudden roar shattered the silence. The headlights flared bright. And that's when I saw. It wasn't just sitting up anymore. It was crawling, dragging itself across the cracked asphalt, fingernails scraping grooves into the road, heading straight for my truck. I slammed the rig into gear. My foot hit the pedal so hard I felt it in my knee. The tires spun, gravel and dust spitting out before finally catching. The truck lurched forward. I checked the mirror, praying I wouldn't see it. But I did. It was standing now, standing. In the middle of the road, head tilted at an unnatural angle. And as I barreled out of that cemetery, every nerve in my body screaming, I saw it raise one hand and wave. Slow, deliberate, like it knew I was watching. I didn't stop driving until the cemetery was 20 miles behind me and the interstate swallowed me whole. Even then, my hands were shaking on the wheel. I told myself I imagined it, that the grave was fresh dirt, the headlights played tricks, that my brain filled in the gaps. But I couldn't explain the sound, the scraping, the way it moved, the way its eyes locked on mine. I told my dispatcher I'd take a different route from then on, and I have. I don't care how many extra miles it adds, because some roads are just roads, and some roads they're doors. And that night, Riverview opened. I don't ever want to see what happens if it opens again. Story 2. I've been driving long haul for nearly 20 years, and in that time I've heard every ghost story truckers like to tell each other at truck stops. You sit in a cracked vinyl booth over bad coffee at 3 a.m., and sooner or later someone will start talking about the phantom hitchhiker on Route 19, or the red-eyed thing that follows rigs through the Nevada desert. I always nodded, smiled politely, and chalked it up to boredom and too much caffeine. Because when you live on the road, your mind plays tricks on you. You get tired, lonely. Shadows move in the corner of your headlights. You start hearing whispers that aren't there. But there's one thing I've never been able to chalk up to fatigue. One thing I don't tell around truck stop tables, because it doesn't feel like a story. It feels like a warning. It was last summer, late June, somewhere along a nameless stretch of two-lane state road cutting through farmland. The kind of road that doesn't even show up on GPS unless you zoom way, way in. A shortcut I'd been taking for years to shave an hour off runs. I had a simple haul that night. Pallets of dry goods headed west. An easy load fully strapped and tarped. The night was clear, the air thick with heat that didn't let up even after midnight. I remember thinking how beautiful it was. The way the moon hung low and yellow over the fields. The way fireflies blinked in and out of existence on the roadside. I also remember how empty it felt. I hadn't seen another set of headlights in almost 40 minutes. No farmhouses, no gas stations. Just black road and the occasional rusted-out barn sagging in the distance. Around 1 a.m., I pulled over to stretch my legs and check the load. I always check the straps, even when I don't need to. Habit. The truck hissed as it settled, brakes locking. I killed the engine, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped down into the gravel shoulder. The silence was immediate. Not just quiet, dead, no crickets, no frogs, just that heavy, humid air pressing against me. I swung the beam of the flashlight across the trailer, ran my hands along the straps, tugged them, checked the tarp. Everything tight, everything normal. Then I heard it. A rustle, soft but distinct. From the back of the trailer I froze. It could have been anything. Wind through weeds, a raccoon, maybe a stray dog nosing around. But the night was still, no breeze. And that sound wasn't coming from the ditch. It was coming from inside the trailer. I walked slowly toward the rear doors, beam of light cutting through the dark. Nothing. I knocked on the metal with the flat of my palm. Bang! The hollow echo rang out and died into silence. Whatever I'd heard, it was gone. I told myself it was nerves. That's the thing about the road. Spend too many hours with nothing but your own breath and the hum of the tires, and you start inventing things just to fill the void. I climbed back into the cab, slammed the door, and fired the engine back up. The first thump came 5 minutes later, a dull, heavy thud from the trailer behind me. I sat up straighter, hands tightening on the wheel. Cargo shifts sometimes. You learn the sound, the low creak of a strap loosening, the shuffle of a box sliding. This wasn't that. This was sharp, deliberate. Another thump followed, then another, and then knocks. Knock, 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 slow, even, from the very back of the trailer. My heart started hammering. I pulled onto the gravel shoulder so fast the truck fishtailed, dust rising in the high beams. I grabbed the flashlight again and climbed down, boots crunching against the gravel, every instinct screaming to stay in the cab, keep driving. But I didn't. I went to the back because I had to know, because truckers don't ignore strange noises from their loads. Even when it's 1 a.m. on an empty road with nothing but darkness for miles, the locks were still in place. I unlatched them. The doors creaked as I pulled them open. The beam of my flashlight swept inside and landed on nothing. Pallets, boxes, tarp, perfectly still. No movement, no one inside. I stood there for too long, feeling the sweat roll down my back, the light trembling in my hand. I closed the doors, shoved the latch back into place. And that's when I heard it, breathing, right next to my ear. I spun so fast the flashlight slipped from my hand, beams swinging wild. For a split second the world seemed still. Then I saw them, 2 pale hands gripping the top lip of the trailer door, long fingers, too long. The nails ragged, cracked, dark with dirt. They tightened, and something began to pull itself up. I didn't wait, didn't think. I bolted for the cab, boots skidding on the gravel, breath ripping out of my throat. I threw myself inside, slammed the door, locked it, floored the engine. The rig roared to life, and I tore down that road like a madman, the trailer groaning behind me. For a few seconds, it was quiet. Then the thumps started again. Heavier, not from inside now, from the roof. I glanced at the side mirror and my stomach dropped. There was something crouched on top of the trailer. Its limbs were bent wrong, too sharp. It was flat against the roof, fingers splayed, holding on like an insect clinging to glass. And its face. God help me, its face. It was pressed against the roof, sideways, grinning, wide, toothless, just a gaping slit of a smile stretching farther than it should. I swerved, the whole rig lurching. Didn't matter. The thing clung tighter. I sped up. The speedometer climbed, the road a blur under my wheels. The thing stayed. At some point, I don't know how long, I saw a light ahead. A truck stop. I yanked the wheel, the whole rig groaning as I skidded into the lot, tires screaming against pavement. I jumped out before the truck had even stopped, scanning the roof, the trailer, the night. Nothing. Just the cooling tick of the engine. Just silence. I told myself I imagined it. That exhaustion and too much darkness had finally snapped something in me. But as I stood there, shaking, I saw something on the asphalt, a handprint, smudged and wet, pressed into the metal just above the latch. Fingers too long, I took a different route the next day. I've taken a different route ever since because there are things on the road you can't explain, and some things you don't want to explain. You just keep driving, hoping whatever's out there doesn't find you again. Story 3. I've been driving trucks for over 20 years. Long hauls, short hauls, coast to coast. I've seen more of this country's highways than most people will in their whole lives. I've driven through mountain passes and blizzards, across deserts where the road ripples in the heat, and through towns so small they don't even bother to put up signs. I've also learned something that I can't quite explain. Some places feel wrong. Not wrong like bad weather or rough pavement, wrong in a way that feels older, heavier, like the road itself is holding its breath. This happened about 8 years ago on one of those places. I don't tell the story often. The guys at truck stops like to share ghost stories. Haunted highways, phantom hitchhikers. But most of those are campfire tales, exaggerated with each retelling. What I saw wasn't one of those. What I saw didn't feel like a story. It felt like something that happened to me and hasn't really let go. It was late summer, somewhere in the Midwest. Illinois, maybe Iowa. The kind of stretch where the map shows you just a ribbon of highway, a few tiny dots of towns, and nothing else for 50 miles in any direction. I had a late-night delivery schedule, a load of medical supplies, ironically enough, and the clock was pressing. By the time it hit 3 a.m., my eyelids were starting to betray me. Any trucker will tell you that's the danger zone. Your mind starts slipping, the lines on the road blur, and even the rumble strip can start to sound like a lullaby. That's when I saw the sign, Rest Area 1 mile. Just those white block letters on a green panel. I hadn't seen a single rest stop sign for hours, so I decided to pull in, grab a coffee from the vending machine, splash water on my face, and get back on the road. I wish I hadn't. The rest stop appeared like they all do, just a wide exit that curved off the highway, swallowed by darkness, then opened into a cracked concrete lot. The light poles had those yellowed sodium bulbs that always make everything look like it's underwater. Only one other truck was parked there, a big red Kenworth. Engine idling low, trailer attached. The driver's side door was open, wide open. I noticed that immediately because every trucker knows you don't leave your door open, especially at night, especially in the middle of nowhere. I slowed my rig, headlights sweeping across the empty lot. No movement, no sign of anyone, just that open door swinging slightly in the warm night breeze. I parked a few spaces down, engine humming, and sat there a second listening. The lot was too quiet. Even at 3 a.m., you expect the occasional insect chirp, maybe the sound of a car on the highway in the distance. Instead, there was this low, constant hum, like the world's electricity had condensed into one long, unbroken note. I told myself I was just tired. I shut off the engine, grabbed my thermos, and stepped out. The air smelled heavy, like wet concrete and something faintly metallic. The red Kenworth sat there, door still hanging open, its interior light wasn't on. "Hello?" I called, mostly to make myself feel less alone. No answer. The restroom building sat at the far edge of the lot, one of those squat brick structures with peeling paint, and 2 doors marked men and women. A vending machine outside blinked with an uneven stutter, its buzzing so loud it sounded angry. I headed toward the building, boots crunching gravel. Halfway there, I glanced down. There were footprints, not unusual, except these were wet, like someone had been walking with soaked boots, dark prints leading from the Kenworth to the restroom door. They glistened under the yellow light. The night was bone dry, no rain, no puddles. Still, I told myself, there's an explanation. There has to be. Inside, the restroom smelled of bleach and mildew, the combination that always makes you breathe through your mouth. The sink dripped plink, plink, plink. I splashed water on my face, avoiding the streaked mirror. That's when I heard it, whispering, low, steady, like someone reading from a book just below their breath. It came from the last stall. I froze, listening. The whispering didn't stop. I could make out the rhythm, but not the words, like another language or maybe just nonsense syllables. The stall door was closed. I crouched slightly, heart hammering, and peered under the gap. Nothing. No feet, no shadow, just an empty space. The whispering stopped. I stood there, every instinct screaming, leave, leave, leave. But curiosity or maybe stubbornness pinned me in place. I pushed the stall door. It creaked open. The toilet bowl was filled with water so dark it looked like oil. Mud streaked the porcelain. Something about it made my stomach turn, though I couldn't have told you why. The whispering started again. This time, it came from directly behind me. I spun around, nothing, just the empty restroom. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped my thermos. It hit the tile with a hollow clang that seemed too loud for such a small room. I didn't pick it up when I stepped outside. The air felt heavier. The lot hadn't changed. Same yellow lights, same buzzing vending machine, but the red Kenworth looked different somehow. Still parked, still running. But now, the passenger side door was open too. I walked faster. My rig sat exactly where I left it, driver's door locked. I climbed in, slammed the door, locked it again. I sat there for a second, gripping the wheel. That's when I saw it. A handprint on my driver's side window, but not on the outside. On the inside. The print was smeared, fingers long, too long, like whoever left it had pressed their whole weight into the glass. I hadn't seen anyone approach. I hadn't seen anyone near my truck. I grabbed my flashlight from the glove box, turned, and shone it in the sleeper. Empty. Of course it was empty, but that didn't stop my heart from feeling like it might break through my ribs. I fired up the engine and tore out of that rest. Stop like hell was on my bumper. The highway opened up ahead, a black ribbon stretching forever. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. Every so often, I'd catch movement in the side mirror, a flicker of shape just outside the beam of my taillights. Once, I thought I saw the reflection of that open Kenworth door, even though I'd left it behind miles ago. I didn't stop until dawn. When I finally did, at a big, well-lit truck stop with people and noise, and the comforting smell of diesel and fried food, I checked the window again. The handprint was still there. No amount of wiping would remove it. It was like it had sunk into the glass itself. I replaced that window eventually. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't keep looking at it, couldn't keep seeing those long fingers pressed against the glass. I still drive, but I never stop at small, isolated rest areas anymore. When the fatigue hits, I'll white-knuckle the wheel for hours, anything to avoid pulling into one of those places. Sometimes, late at night, I'll pass a sign, rest area 1 mile, and my hands will tighten on the steering wheel. I always keep going because I can't shake the feeling that if I stop again, whatever left that handprint might climb inside, and next time, it might not leave. Truckers don't scare easily, but even they have stories they don't tell in daylight. The highways aren't as empty as they look, and sometimes when you're the only set of headlights for miles, you're not the only one watching. Thanks for riding with Mr. Darkveil. Subscribe for more true horror every week. And next time you see something strange on the road, don't stop.